practice wishing for the object of your metta that these things happen to them. So you'll repeat this thought. May this person be happy. May this person be free. And may this person be at peace. Alrighty, chat. Let's get started. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. Just a reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything is for educational or entertainment purposes only. If y'all have a medical concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. All right. So, welcome everybody. Happy Saturday. Couple of quick announcements. So the first is we're more than halfway through our free adulting challenge on Discord. So this is a community event where we get together and we adult. So when I see people in our community talking about how, oh my God, life is hard. Like, yeah, it is. And that's because we're not really taught how to adult. Like the generations before us, basically, like they learned the stuff that they needed to learn. And so I'll give you all just a simple example of this. So I think we really took for granted how much we developed our social skills in the world we used to live in. So you didn't really have to focus on developing your social skills because everything was social. And now that we have things like online classes, like I remember I had, friends in med school who like never went to class and would just watch the VOD upload. And so like now as we're becoming a technology-based society, like people don't need to socialize anymore. So we're like forgetting how to socialize or we're not learning. So other kinds of things like laundry and stuff like that, like we're working on being adults. So if y'all are interested in joining up with a group of people who we're all just going to be adulting together, no judgment. It's just us noobs on the internet trying to put our lives together, like very, very concretely. Strongly recommend y'all check it out, right? So I think a lot of times, it's funny, we're going to talk about this today. Some people will be like, oh my God, I've watched all these self-help videos and I never do anything. And it's like, yeah, so sometimes you got to take that step to actually do something, right? And so we have all kinds of different stuff available. Definitely check it out. We also do have coaching spots open for like the first time in a couple of years. So definitely check that out. Coaching is something that we developed here at Healthy Game. We're going to be talking some about some of these principles today. But one of the things I just noticed as a psychiatrist is like, I can talk to people in my office about their problems, but like what half of them need to do is just like start fixing their problems on the outside. And so we developed a program to help people do that. So it's rooted in some of these principles like motivational interviewing, which if y'all are not familiar with this, there's actually one evidence-based technique that is very successful at getting people to change their behavior. And that is motivational interviewing. It is a way of talking to a human being that over time increases their motivation and gets them to do things. So the challenge is that motivational interviewing is basically not doable on your own. Like you can kind of do it, but not really. And it requires another human to interact with you. And a key thing about motivational interviewing, so here's just a simple example. We focus on ambivalence. So ambivalence is internal conflict towards doing something. I want to work out, but I want to stay at home. I want to eat healthy, but I want my tendies. So if you look at most people in life, they say that they're unmotivated. That's not true. They have conflicting motivation. So there's one technique that has been thoroughly studied that helps people to change their behavior. That's one of the core foundations of our coaching program. So if you want to work with someone who helps you change your behavior, right, there's a specific evidence-based technique that will use words to increase your motivation over time. And part of the reason that we can't do it on our own is because it requires a certain amount of like pushing back, basically, from the coach, which we can't do for ourselves. It's kind of like you can't hug yourself, right? Like it doesn't work. Like it doesn't feel the same as when someone else hugs you. Even if the physical stimulus is somewhat similar, it doesn't work. And unfortunately, from an MI standpoint, we haven't figured out a way to DIY it, which is part of the reason that we get the outcomes that we get, which we'll also be presenting at a national addiction conference in a little while. So great outcomes. Definitely check it out if y'all are interested in just finally doing something about it. Then check out coaching. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the slow suicide epidemic. So I got to offer a couple of disclaimers here, okay? So the first is that there is a very good chance, almost guaranteed, we've talked to our partner managers and stuff about this, that this stream will be censored. So the stream won't show up. If y'all search on YouTube, you won't find it. Because there is I think a reasonable policy, for example, on YouTube that you can't search for like videos on suicide. So if you have a video that has suicide in the title or you talk about suicide at the beginning of the video, then the algorithm will basically suppress it. And I think that that's like a good policy. I'm not against the policy. Because for a long time, people were, searching for things and there's all kinds of other data that shows that suicide happens in clusters. So media glorification of suicide results in upticks in suicide. So I think it's reasonable that we kind of censor this information. Now, the challenge is that if we censor the information on the topic of suicide, we also end up suppressing the information that is like anti-suicide, right? So that's what today's stream is going to be about. We're going to talk a little bit about suicide, but from a psychiatric perspective, from a perspective of I've worked with a lot of people who have been suicidal. I've helped a lot of people who have been suicidal. I do not think you should kill yourself. I do think things can get better. I think things will get better. The challenge is that, and today I'd like to take some time to talk to you all about why I believe that, dig into the science of it, understand the problem the same way that we approach everything else. But we are going to be talking about suicide. And if you're in a dark place right now, I strongly recommend that y'all seek medical attention. If you're having suicidal thoughts and things like that right now, like by all means, go to the emergency room, call 911, whatever your emergency services are. I genuinely think that's the right move to do. And the other thing is just if you're in a fragile place, recognize that we're going to be talking. I don't think it's going to be very vulgar or anything like that or brutal. And at the same time, if you're in a place that's vulnerable, please take care of yourselves. By all means, see a mental health professional. I think we're really good at dealing with this. And then the last thing is that if y'all find, I don't usually do this, but if y'all find today's stream, video, whatever useful, and you think other people could benefit from it, please share it with them. So normally we don't ask y'all to, hey, comment, like, and subscribe. All right? We don't say that. Like most people will say that on every video. We don't say that, I think, ever. And that's because it's not, we're here for you. If the channel grows, great. If the channel doesn't grow, whatever. I'll just go back to hanging a shingle and seeing patients in my office. Not a big deal. So this is the one time where the algorithm so people won't be able to find this organically. Like it's going to be like, there's no way, you're not going to be able to find it organically, which means that if y'all found it useful and you think someone could benefit from it, then please share it with them. That's it, right? Because it's not going to show up anywhere. So that's the one time we're going to say that. Maybe we'll say it again. Maybe we'll start saying it all the time. I don't know. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the slow suicide epidemic. And what do I mean by this? So if you look at our medical system believes that about 5% of people have been suicidal in the last year, and about 10.7% of people will experience suicide over the course of their lifetime. So 1 out of 10 will be suicidal at some point in their life. I think the number is way, way, way higher. I want to say that 1 out of every 30 to 50% of patients that I've worked with, even clients that I've worked with on the coaching side, express some degree of suicidality. And the really scary thing is that I think there's a large portion of people who don't feel suicidal, who I would sort of say have something called passive suicidality. So this is where we have to understand, this is like really important to understand this distinction. So we have two kinds of suicidality. One is something called active suicidality. And the real tragedy in some ways, it's not a tragedy, but you'll see what I'm about to say. Our medical system and the psychiatric system is designed to protect against what we call active suicidality. So, for example, we have multi-million-dollar emergency rooms where you have psychiatric professionals that are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. When I was working in residency and there was a blizzard that would shut down all the roads, they told me, come the night before and you can sleep in the office building next door. Bring a sleeping bag. We have office buildings. You can sleep on the floor in the office building. We'll have food and drinks and stuff like that. You have to be here for your shift. I don't care that you can't get here. You can't physically get here. You need to come the night before. You're going to be trapped in the hospital for about 36 hours, and then you're going to leave. You don't have to work for those 36 hours. They'll call other people in. It's like, that's what we do. We like staff people to protect against acute suicidality. So this is someone who wants to kill themselves like now or soon. And we have a lot of resources. We have locked psychiatric units all over the United States and many parts of the world where like we have security and stuff like that. We remove all of the sharps from their access. We take their shoelaces away when they enter the unit, right? Like we go through all their stuff to make sure they can't kill themselves. So we have tons of resources and support for acute suicidality. This is not a bad thing by any means. Same is true of things like ICU level of care, right? So the intensive care unit is like very, very resource intensive, and we have those all over the place. So we as human beings have decided that the closer you are to death, the more help you should get, which is completely reasonable, right? Like if you are going to die harder than someone else, we should help you more than someone else. The challenge is that as we've moved in that direction, we've started to ignore, or not ignore, but we don't have as much resources. We don't ignore it. We don't have nearly as many resources devoted to something called passive suicidality. And what that means is that, so this is like what this sounds like when I talk to patients, is that it's not that I want to kill myself. It's just that if I went to sleep tonight and I never woke up, I would be completely fine with that. It is a complete absence of a desire to live. It is not that I want to kill myself, but that's like if I got hit by a meteor, like no big deal. If I contracted a fatal illness, hopefully I don't suffer too much. If I died in my sleep, like not a big deal. And the really scary thing is that I think passive suicidality is at the root of many of the problems that we see today. So things like video game addiction, pornography addiction, burnout. I think many of these terms that are more acceptable to say have at their root, when I scratch beneath the surface and I tunnel down a little bit, what I find is passive suicidality. I think we have a gigantic epidemic of passive suicidality. We have a whole half of a generation, 30% of a generation, who if we checked out tomorrow, like we'd be fine with it, right? There's no like yearning to live. There is just an apathy about life. And since there is nothing that life has to offer us, why is this epidemic growing? And by the way, so there are scary statistics to support this. So remember earlier I said that suicidality is 5% in the last year. 5% of people in the last year have experienced suicidality. 10.7% of people over the course of their lifetime will experience suicidality. There are scarier statistics. So if you look at people who are patients in a psychiatric context, the number jumps to 47% lifetime prevalence of suicidality, right? And now the problem is like the percentage of people who qualify, or they may not be patients because they don't have care, but if we're looking at, mood disorders are 30%, anxiety disorders are 30%, social anxiety is on the rise. Video game addiction used to be about 6% in 2010. In 2020, it was like 11%. So it almost doubled and things are getting worse. So we're seeing like, okay, amongst people who are psychiatric patients or qualify for a psychiatric illness, the rate is 47%. And the problem is that group is growing every year and growing fast. We're growing. And so what I see for these people, like what I really call passive suicidality is like these people who just fast forward their life. So you wake up in the morning, there's nothing to look forward to. You're on the grind. And so when you have time is it's not a resource to be used. It's something to be gotten through. So when I look at people at the airport who are waiting for their flight because it's been delayed by an hour, I see hundreds of people who are just sitting there and passing the time. The goal is to hit the fast forward button on life until something happens. And what I see is a generation of people who are stuck at the airport. There's no reason to wake up every day. There's nothing to look forward to every day. It's just like, what the hell is going to happen? I don't know. Climate change. I'm never going to move out. I'm never going to have a home. I'm not going to be able to travel. I'm never going to find a relationship. I'm going to just get squeezed by my corporate overlords. I'm going to become a cog in a machine. And so in my free time, I'm just going to hit the fast forward button. I'm going to binge watch some anime. I'm going to play video games. I'm going to watch some pornography. I'm going to eat some tendies. Like these can all be recreational things. But what I see in a lot of the patients that I work with is honestly passive suicidality. They've given up on life as something to be treasured and valued and something that can give you joy, right? They've fundamentally lost this concept that if I like exist in this world for day after day after day after day, I will be happy. I will gain happiness over time. My life will improve. So this is where we have to start. So why does someone think this way? Well, because it's true for them. Right? So this is where like people will say like, oh, like believe in yourself. Like these people tried that. The world has so much to offer for other people. See, because like human beings, it's not like there's like half the human beings on the planet are stupid and half the human beings on the planet are smart. It's like people learn from their experiences. And this is their experience of life. So oftentimes these are people who have tried to take what life is supposed to offer. I did what you told me to do. I went to college. I got a job. I polished my resume. I updated my resume. I applied for more jobs. I tried to date. I tried to do this. I tried to get into shape. What's the point? I don't see the point. They try to do all this stuff, and oftentimes they get dumpstered by life. And so I think it's really easy to be hopeful about life when the work that you put into life gets you something in return. It's way harder to be hopeful about life when there's nothing to hope for. And we see this a lot in our community, a lot of trauma, a lot of generational trauma. The sheer volume of rejections that the human mind experiences is like 100 to 1,000 times what the human brain evolved for. This is not just like twice as bad. This is not even 10 times as bad. Applying for a job nowadays involves hundreds of jobs, thousands of rejections. And there's some primitive part of your brain that each time you get a rejection, when you're swiping right or swiping left, I don't know which one is which on Tinder, right? And then you get rejected from person after person after person after person after person after person after person. That affects us. So the first thing is that I think suicidality is way more common than we give it credit for. Now, this is passive suicidality. This is having no reason to wake up in the morning, have nothing to look forward to tomorrow. If I died in my sleep, I would be totally fine with it. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how to address this. So the right answer is that if you're actively suicidal, you need urgent emergency medical attention. That's the right answer, right? So if you're thinking about killing yourself and you have a plan and you have the means and you really have the intention to do it, the right answer is very, very, very simple. It's the same as if you're having a heart attack or a seizure, you need urgent medical intervention. So go to the hospital, go to the emergency room, call 911 or whatever your emergency services number are in the country that you're in. That's the right answer. Now, for all of the rest of y'all, thankfully, that's the minority. For the rest of y'all, that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? And the good news, there's a lot to do. Okay. I want to give up on life. I have no more hope. My life is garbage. I'm 26. I've never had a girlfriend. No woman has liked me. I look like shit. I'm 5'7". I tried to get more jacked, but I have chronic injuries and can't lift anymore. I also don't have a circle of friends to hang out with, and it's hard to adapt to people in my age group because they already have their friends. So we're going to just stop right here. So the first thing that I want y'all to notice is that the first paragraph is, I tried. Right? So this is the first thing that we have to do to understand. Is no woman has liked me. I look like shit. I tried to get more jacked. Chronic injuries. Like, this is the experience of people who are passively suicidal, is that they tried this and it didn't work. I tried this and it didn't work. I tried this and it didn't work. And I don't have a circle of friends. And now when I try to make friends, like, this is challenging, right? Because once you're 26, like, the time of meeting people is kind of over. Like, there's default meeting people when you're like in elementary school and high school, and then you go to college and you meet people, and everyone is meeting people. The problem is there comes a time in your life where not everyone is meeting people. And when everyone stops meeting people, it's really hard for you to meet people. My whole life I felt worthless and undesirable. I tried to change that by maybe finding something to distract me from my shitty life. Maybe with some career aspiration or life accomplishment, I could distract myself from how worthless I am. I thought I would become a professor one day, but realized that's not happening because it's too much of a risk to spend that much time and money for something that most likely will not work out. Now I can't see myself doing anything else. I hate my job because they all seem like people are just buying time. There's no fulfillment in that for me, especially since I won't like my life back at home. I really don't know how I'm going to survive a 9-to-5 gig. There's nothing for me to come home to. I'm honestly struggling to have any self-worth. Worst of all, my hope has been eradicated. I'm only going to look worse with age. My injuries are chronic, so I can't lift. I'm getting older, so I can't find a decent career. Even if even if I turn around everything magically, I'm still going to be haunted by the fact that most of my 20s were wasted. The best years of my life were everyone around me partying and having all of that is wasted and gone. I want to give up. So let's understand how people develop passive suicidality. See, passive suicidality happens when the brain makes a calculation about the future and finds that the trend is going to be downward. Right? So right now, like when we say like, oh, like the future is bright, like that depends. So your brain looks into the future and looks at your trajectory. And it's very good at making calculations, right? Like it's like very good at knowing like, okay, do I need to go to the bathroom right now? Or can I wait until I get to the gas station? How far is the restaurant? My brain is very good at making calculations. And so the number one cause for passive suicidality is not a life that is unsavable. That's how it feels. The number one cause for passive suicidality is a downward trend. And this is why it's so common, because all you need is a downward trend. And life is like this. The problem is that if we're kind of on this like stable trend downward, which is exactly what we see from this person, right? 26 years old. I had a period of life where I was making friends, I was partying, whatever, and now like that trend is over and now we're heading downward. I can't hold a 9-to-5 job. I don't have relationships. I tried to lift because everyone says work out, bro, but that didn't work out because I have this chronic injury. I'm trying and I'm getting foiled everywhere I go. This results in passive suicidality because your brain doesn't see a way forward. You don't see a way forward. There absolutely is a way forward. You just don't see it. So they've lost all hope. So that's interesting. So what does science tell us about hope? Psychotherapy with suicidal patients, the integrative psychodynamic approach of the Boston Suicide Study Group. This is an awesome paper. Mark Schechter is amazing. I think he's chief of psychiatry at North Shore Medical Center. I was lucky enough to work with or learn from Elsa Ronningstam. Elsa's great, or Dr. Ronningstam. I'm not on a first name basis with her. So this is a really fantastic paper, and I want to show y'all one thing in particular. Instilling hope. Snyder described hope as requiring both a sense of agency, sense that one has some capacity to affect positive change, and pathways, a sense of some possible routes for moving forward. So we describe hope as an emotion, and we tell people, bro, don't give up hope. And people will say, I've lost hope. So the cool thing is we've figured out scientifically what is necessary for hope. Hope is not just an emotion. Hope is a calculation. And there are two variables. One is I have agency. If I exert effort, I can change the world around me. It's not even that good things will happen. It's that I have power in this world. If you do not have any power, you cannot have any hope. Now, it's a sense of agency. A lot of people will respond and say, oh, I don't have any power. Other people are powerful, but I don't. This is untrue. I say this as a psychiatrist. I've been a medical doctor now for 10 years. I've been a psychiatrist for 6. Worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are suicidal. And generally speaking, the majority of them get better. And that's because we don't understand where hope comes from. We tell someone, have hope. Oh, cool. Like, I'll just go to the grocery store and pick it up off the shelf. No. Hope requires two things. The first is a sense of agency, and the second is a roadmap. So this is another really important thing. Your brain has to have a logical way to calculate out that things can get better. It's not enough to have power. You have to have power and a roadmap. Now, this is why a lot of solutions don't work for passively suicidal people. And y'all know this, right? Because you'll say, hey, I don't have a girlfriend. I'm 26, no 9-to-5. I can't work out this. And people will say, hey, bro, do this. Hey, bro, do this. Hey, girl, do this. Hey, girl, do this. They give you solutions. But a roadmap without a sense of agency doesn't work. What it actually does, when other people give you advice and offer you roadmaps without a sense of agency, what it actually does is makes you feel weaker and powerless. It has the opposite effect. Does that make sense? Because now everyone is telling you, oh, look, this solution will work for you. You should do this. And then it doesn't work for you, right? Which means what? Now it works for everyone else, but you were different. Now, the world has a script that other people follow. Great. You're not one of them. because it works for other people, right? Everyone says, just put yourself out there. I put myself out there and it did not work. Therefore, the world's solutions don't work for me. Therefore, I am unsavable. Therefore, the downward trajectory is what I see. And then the only way to enjoy life is to extract as much dopamine as I can from my brain, my body, my penis, my genitals, my vagina, to extract as much pleasure as I can out of TV, out of video games, out of pornography, out of drugs, because there's no like joy. There's nothing to look forward to. This is also something I've learned practicing addiction psychiatry for a couple of years. See, the reason people get addicted is because there's very low opportunity cost. It's like, if I don't get high today, what's going to happen? I'm not going to turn my life around in a day. Right? So this is the really crazy thing. All this dopaminergic stuff isn't inefficient. It's the most efficient. It's the most guaranteed way to extract dopamine from your nucleus accumbens. What about all this other stuff? Bro, what are you talking about? Have a family? Have a career? Have a life? That's a lot of work, and it may not work out. Whereas this thing, this little bit of heroin that I can inject into my veins, that's a surefire thing. It's a safe investment. So now the question becomes, what do we do about it? Right? So that's what we're going to dig into today. So the first thing to understand is, don't just have hope. You can't just have hope. You need two things for hope. Hope will come naturally if you can develop a sense of agency, and if you can have a roadmap. So it's not enough to like believe in yourself. You need a way, you need a how, okay? So, let me think about how I'm going to do this. So now I've painted myself into a corner. Okay. So, now I have to figure out how to do that, chat. Should have thought that one through. So let's talk a little bit about developing a sense of agency. Okay? So the first thing to understand about developing a sense of agency is that it has nothing to do with power. So people think, if I am powerful, I have agency. Okay? So I'll give you all an example. So people think like, oh, I need like money or power or things like that. This is the first problem. So first thing is, it's a sense of agency. It's not agency. Specific. You just have to believe that you're powerful. You don't actually have to be powerful. So I'll give you all an example. So I was lucky enough to train in Boston, and we had a lot of Cambodian refugees that had moved to Boston many years ago. I think to maybe escape the Khmer Rouge or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the historical reason was. And so I was working with a patient who was like in some kind of genocidal concentration camp, and she survived there for a couple of years and then ended up escaping, an older woman. And so this is like objectively, like one of the situations where she has like the least power, probably of just about anyone I've ever met, like professionally. When I think about, how hopeless is someone's life, it's like, there's a genocidal regime which is trying to exterminate my people. And they have caught me. And they have put me in jail. And I literally, there's like nothing I can do. Like, I don't have a gun. They don't care about me. They don't have any compassion. There's nothing. Like, it's like, this is like one of the worst situations in humanity. And I was like, how did you survive? It's like, what happened there? Amazing woman. So it was really interesting to hear her talk about her survival and like how agency it filled it was. So she can't control the guards. She can't control the regime. She can't control where she is. But the one thing that she can control is like how she survives this situation, right? So I'm not going to die today. If they kill me, they kill me, but like I'm not going to die. There's a chance that if I hold on, things will get better. Like I'm not going to die today. I'm not going to die today. I'm not going to die today. Just not today, not today, not today. This was what she would tell herself every single day, right? They can take everything away from me, but like the one thing is like, the one thing I can control is whether I give up or not. That's all I can control. Right? And we see this. We see this in cancer treatment. People who give up are more likely to die. But then there's also like the flip side of that, which is like really, really sad, which is that sometimes it's normal to give up. And if someone gives up, then we call them weak. We say, oh, you should fight, as if dying to cancer is a lack of fighting. Like you can't, there's both sides of that. It's nuanced. Like if you can fight as hard as you want, cancer can still kill you. Like it's not an absence of fighting. And at the same time, there are psychological perspectives. So her big thing was like, I'm going to do what I can do, right? I'm going to try to survive today. I'm not going to give up. That gave her a sense of agency, because once she decides I'm not going to give up, then like she's taking control of something. So now we have to understand something very, very, very important about suicidality. Suicidality is about taking control when you have none left. I had a patient once who kept a noose in their basement. And the hardest thing for them was to give up the noose. I was like, hey, friend, you need to get rid of the noose. And they were like, yeah, I know. So the really challenging thing is, what do y'all think happened psychologically when they got rid of their noose? Huge spike in anxiety. Their mental health got way worse. And why is that? It's because the noose offers comfort. The noose is a way of saying, you know what? If everything gets too hard, I can make it stop. I can end it. And now when the noose gets taken away, which it should absolutely get taken away, and the reason for that is because about 60 to 90% of people who end up attempting to kill themselves do so impulsively. So maybe 30 to 40% of people within 60 seconds, they'll decide to kill themselves and they'll make an act. About 60%, I want to say, I'm a bit fuzzy on the statistics, 60 to 70%, within 5 minutes of the act, they make the decision. So protecting against suicidality is protecting against impulsivity. If you can remove the impulsivity, it's a better thing to do. Most people will change their mind. That's why we're so careful about means. So if y'all have means of suicide within your home, get rid of them, because you'll change your mind, right? It's like there's impulse purchases like, oh, I'm going to buy some loot boxes. And then there's like impulse using a noose. We don't want to do that. Now, the problem is that when we get rid of the noose, we are opening ourselves up to all of the anxiety and suffering of life that we can't turn off. You can't turn it off and turn it on again, right? The hallmark bastion of tech support is, have you tried turning it off and turning it on again? This is also why we get addicted to things like ketamine, because that's what it does for us. Ketamine is almost like a miniature death for a few moments. And that's not like, I'm not saying that like a bad thing. Like we even use the phrase ego death to describe spiritual experiences. Right? So there's like, it's not crazy that these people long for this experience, because we have these experiences in other situations that are very healing in some ways. I don't think killing yourself is healing. But I'm saying that there's something in there that's very legitimate. It just gets perverted. So suicidality is about control. And this explains why people who have lost their sense of agency, this is the one thing, because what is it? It's my agency. I get to decide. So the first thing that we have to do is restore that sense of agency. Now, a lot of people make the mistake that, okay, agency means I am powerful. I have money. I have this. No, It's a sense of agency. This is all happening in your mind, and actually somewhat related to the outside world, but there's a big modification going on. So now the question becomes, how do we develop a sense of agency? So what we're going to do is look at this. Okay? So if we look at this, we need a sense of agency. Now, here's the problem that a lot of people run into. Right? So I've never had a girlfriend. No woman has liked me. So we believe, so this is kind of what happens. When we think about agency, we think what a sense of agency is here's me. I act. The act has a consequence. Let's say love. And therefore, if I get this consequence, then I have agency. And here's a really interesting thing that we discovered. So if you look at the majority of psychotherapy is focused on negative affect or negative emotions. What we try to do is remove the negativity that is potentially suppressing your agency. But one of the really interesting studies that I saw on suicidality, let me see if I can find it for y'all. Give me a second. Let's see if we can just pull it up. Hold on. Hold on, chat. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me for a second, chat. Wondering if this is one of those. Okay, so let's take a look at this paper. Treatment for anhedonia, a neuroscience-driven approach. So anhedonia, or loss of interest or pleasure in usual activities, is characteristic of depression, sometimes anxiety, as well as substance use and schizophrenia. Anhedonia is a predictor of poor long-term outcomes, including suicide and poor treatment response. Okay? So current psychological and drug treatments for anxiety and depression focus largely on reducing excesses in negative affect rather than improving deficits in positive affect. So this is very important to understand. So right now, if your life feels empty, I wanted to draw this, but I'm going to just talk. If your life feels empty, let's understand what most psychiatrists will say. They'll say you are depressed, you are anxious, which can be scientifically true, can be practically true. And they will say, let's take the negativity away from your life. But if you have an empty life that's piled with negativity and you take the negativity away, you're still going to have an empty life. At best, you're going to shoot for neutral. We don't do a very good job at helping people extract the positive from life. So now what happens if we look at this person's post, they try lots of things, but I can guarantee you that there are bright spots in their day. There are things to look on the bright side. So this person says, I worked out for a while, but now my chronic illness is in the way. And they look at this as a failure, which is a fair way to look at it. At the same time, they could also look at it in a way that is like, hey, at least I tried something. Hey, at least I got some progress out of it. Hey, this may not have worked, but at least instead of trying nothing, I tried something. Right? There are two ways to look at this situation. One is, I tried something and it didn't work. And the second is, this is one of a series of things that I'm going to try that will eventually get me to where I want to go. This is perseverance. But that's not the way that we think. And why is that? That's because our circuitry changes. So if we look at passive suicidality, anhedonia is a huge part of it. So let's understand what anhedonia means. Okay, and then we're going to tell y'all how to develop a sense of agency. So this is a big problem. Big problem. So if you're passively suicidal and you have no reason to get up in the morning, let's understand something. So what's a reason to get up? Like joy, right? Like having fun of some kind. They're positive things. So the absence of positivity it leads to passive SI. Okay? It's not like factual, but it's like we know that, okay? There's a lot more to it. And so let's understand this. So the person who's passively suicidal, I have no reason to get out of bed. It's like, it's just a grind. So now, what is the part of our brain that makes us excited for things? What is the part of our brain that creates wanting, craving, yearning? What is the part of our brain that gives us pleasure? And what is the part of our brain that motivates us to action? Turns out it's all one part of the brain. Nucleus accumbens, dopamine. Now, this creates kind of a chicken or an egg problem. And by the way, we can try to look at this real quick. I can't find. Okay, this paper should have it somewhere in here. So let's go over here. So I'm looking for a paper that's telling us that medications are not very effective for anhedonia, which is the case. But let me just hold on a second. Let me find this. Screw it. We're going to find it. All right, chat. Here we go. I think this is the one. Give me a second, chat. Right, so traditional antidepressants such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors and serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors are first-line treatments for depression and its associated symptoms, including anhedonia. However, their effectiveness in treating anhedonia is limited, with evidence of partial or no improvement in anhedonia with antidepressant medication alone. So this is part of the problem. Is when we're talking about depression, more traditional, let's say, mood disorders, what we're dealing with is the serotonergic system. So we have things like SSRIs. But that's not where anhedonia comes from. So serotonin is a sense of contentment. It's not a sense of pleasure. Serotonin doesn't actually increase motivation or wanting. It actually does the opposite. So when I have sex and I achieve climax, what I get is a burst of serotonin after the climax, which then reduces my wanting for sexual activity, reduces my motivation for sexual activity. I'm like, I'll call you in the morning. Right? You get your beer goggles off and you're like, what am I doing here? There's all kinds of like weird feelings that arise and things like that. Right? Post-nut clarity, serotonin mediated. We also know that if you give someone a serotonergic medication like an antidepressant, they will have difficulty attaining orgasm. Their libido can decrease, and they will feel, some people feel numb. Right? So now we run into another problem, which is like passive suicidality. If it's from the serotonin and depressive side, then it makes sense that we can treat it with a serotonergic agent. But now what we're talking about, this is super scary, because our main weapon against depression focuses on building serotonin. And how do we build serotonin? Remember, this is contentment. So we'll use SSRIs, but we'll also do psychotherapy. But focused on what? Focused on reducing negative. Right? If we reduce the negative, then you'll be content. It's not about pleasure or wanting or achievement or anything like that. The problem in today's world is that our dopamine system is messed up. So we see all kinds of tech that negatively impacts our dopamine system. So that's one reason why we're seeing a rise in anhedonia. And then this becomes a big problem because, like, if we look at people who are passively suicidal, what do they have? They have an absence of wanting things. They don't yearn. They have an absence of motivation, and they have an absence of reward. So I want y'all, we're going to look at a couple of posts today. I want y'all to pay attention to these three things. Ask yourself, does this person experience pleasure? Do they experience wanting and goal-directed behavior? Do they experience motivation? So now this is what's so cool about the treatment of anhedonia. So someone realized, hey, what we need to do is not just remove the negative. We need to help people cultivate positive. So this is what's really wild. And they figured out a methodology for this. They figured out all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm going to show you all just real quick, okay? And we're going to go through some of this. The computational structure of consumatory anhedonia. This is a Chad paper, okay? Stacy paper. Okay. One key computationally relevant distinction is between the diminished pleasure experienced during events, consumatory anhedonia, and the more anticipatory components such as diminished interest in the events from afar or the motivation to pursue rewards termed motivational anhedonia. So what this is basically saying that there are two, we can divide anhedonia into these two different things. This is consumatory. And this is motivational. So anhedonia actually gets split up into two things, okay? This is one, this is two. And these are actually different. And what we really need to do is cultivate both. So this is like, I'm kind of going slow and I'm kind of belaboring these points, but I really want y'all to understand this. So see, the problem if you're passively suicidal is that you look at life and you think that the events around you will determine whether you're happy or not. Right? So if I invest in this and it works out, then I will be happy. So we see this right here. Right? So they try to find something to distract me from your shitty life. So this life is fundamentally shitty. I thought I would become a professor, but realized that's not happening because it's too much of a risk to spend that time and money for something that most likely will not work out. So what happens is you're over here. And then you see professor over here. And then this has a lot of effort involved. And you think like, okay, this is a minus. These are minus signs, right? These are minus signs. Cost, 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 cost. And then you get a plus over here. But if you don't go all the way over here and you don't end up with a plus, this is just all cost. So people who view the world as this is not a plus, this is not a plus, this is not a plus, which is exactly what this paper is talking about. What they're going to do is develop something called Therapeutic Approach for Positive Affective Treatment, an intervention designed to specifically target deficits in reward sensitivity. So what they realized is that you can have this experience, but if you can increase your reward sensitivity, these all become positive. There are ways to literally remap your brain so that experiences that used to be negative can be positive. And that is the whole ball game, chat. The whole ball game. Right? Because if you're someone who's passively suicidal and you struggle with, like, life has no, like, there's nothing good, you look at these other people and you're like, I don't understand, like, how they fucking feel good working on their resume. Like, what the fuck? What kind of life hack is this? And how screwed am I that I ended up with the doesn't like working on my resume trait? You know, during character creation, I was like, I'm going to pick doesn't like working on resume. I'm going to pick doesn't like working out. I'm going to pick socially anxious. I'm going to create all these traits. And then you look at someone else and, you know, they have the does like working on my resume, extrovert, and some other things. And then this is the fucking problem, right? Because when you're making a character at the beginning of the game and they're like, pick your stat distribution, pick your class. You don't know what the class is like. You don't know what weapons are in the game. You don't know what magic spells are available. You don't know what traits do what. You don't understand anything about character design when you're making your class. And so you get locked in to this particular set of attributes, which it turns out, the meta in today's life is that working on your resume, being a primary source of your pleasure, is a major aspect of success. Well, fuck me. So now the question becomes, how do we extract pleasure? We can actually wake up our anhedonic circuitry. This is something that most psychiatrists don't know, most therapists don't know, because our bias is in removing negative affect. It's about getting rid of your negative emotions. Don't be so depressed. Let's help you reduce the anxiety. Reduce. We don't teach people how to be happy. This deficiency, by the way, is part of the reason that I started the coaching program, because I was like, hold on a second. All the monk training was like, wait a minute. Psychotherapy is a beautiful system that has been targeted at reducing negativity, not building positivity. That's not the focus. We can take these same methodologies and we can apply them to achieving goals. So let's understand how that works. A couple of steps you have to take. Number one, you have to be better at anticipating. You need to change the way that you anticipate rewards. Okay? So I'll show you what I mean by that. So what we want to do is be internally reward focused. I'll give you an example. So here's externally reward focused. Let's say I have to study for a test. Okay, if I study, this is going to be a negative. I have to study for 3 hours, and then hopefully I will get an A. Now, if I study for 3 hours, and I end up getting a B or a C, then this will negatively reinforce my behavior, right? Because now I put in all this effort. What's the point in studying next time? I studied my ass off and still got a B. I can half-ass it and maybe get a B. Now, internally reward focused. I'm going to give this to y'all. It's going to be great. Y'all ready? It's going to be some believe in your shit, yourself bullshit, internal bullshit. Y'all are right, but just wait. I know y'all are skeptical. Look at that cognitive bias. You ready for it? So when I study on day number 1, the reward is, holy shit, I'm not procrastinating. I didn't procrastinate. I didn't wait till the last minute. Imagine how nice it will be. So here's the main technique that I teach people. Imagine how nice it would be to not have to worry about this tomorrow. Now, if y'all are listening to this and you're like, but no, but then I'll still have to worry about it. One day doesn't solve it. Notice your cognitive bias. Notice how, like, anytime I say something, you're like, nyeh. So let's do something very simple. Doing the dishes, studying. right? Like, so like you look at this is a common example. Like I'm done after an exhausting day of gaming all day. And I'm like slobbering myself through the kitchen. I know slobbering isn't a verb of mobility unless you're a degenerate gamer. So this is like when you get up, and like slobber is like when stuff comes out of your mouth. But like, when you've been gaming hardcore and like there's like the detritus of your gaming here, like you spilled something and you couldn't quite be bothered to, like, there's some ketchup over here, and so you're like wiping it like this. You have like detritus all over here. Another really nasty thing, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at what's underneath the keys in your keyboard, but it's fucking nasty in there. And then you walk through the kitchen. You're not degenerate enough to like not do anything. So at least like this pile of plates and these fast food wrappers that you have, you're going to pick them up and you're going to move them into the trash. As you move them into the trash, you look at this sink that is piled up with dirty dishes, and you think to yourself, I don't feel like it. The way to switch your anhedonia is to look at that task and say, when I wake up in the morning, do I want that to be gone? It's an internal focus. It is a relief for yourself. You are anticipating some kind of negativity, and you're doing yourself the favor of not screwing yourself over tomorrow. Because tomorrow when you wake up, what's going to happen? You're going to see all the dirty dishes, and you're going to be like, oh my God, that's another thing. And then what's going to happen? Your mind is going to spiral. I have to do this. 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 I failed at doing this. I failed at doing this. So these dishes, just dishes in the sink, have suddenly created the spiral. Then you're back at the desk, and you're bop, 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 bop. Right? This is what people figured out. You have to have an internally focused reward. You have to think about anticipating, especially the reward of your action. So remember that the dopaminergic circuit gives you the idea of what will benefit when you do something. So if we look at this post, we'll see that this is absent. So I want y'all to look at this. Like, where is there positivity in here? Where is there a sense of the value? I thought I would become a professor, but I realize it's not happening because it's too much of a risk. What about the benefits of being a professor? Where are those? I don't know how I'm going to survive a 9-to-5 gig. What about the benefits of a 9-to-5 gig? There's nothing for me to come home to. So like this is the twist that the anhedonic brain does. It never sees a benefit to anything that you do. It literally doesn't see it. Do y'all get this? This is huge. I'm honestly struggling to have any self-worth. I run out of hope. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we want to do is scan for positives. So this is subtle. So sometimes this gets like turns into toxic positivity. So toxic positivity is when we ignore our negativity or we transform all of our negativity into positivity. Everything is a learning experience. Like, I think everything can be a learning experience, but it's okay for some things to just suck. And it's like, I just wish this didn't happen. At the same time, this is what we want to do is be able to see the positive in things. So even if I wasted my whole day, I can guarantee you that there were some moments. I mean, I guess technically this could be wrong, but I would say 99% of patients I've worked with, this has been what I'm about to say is true. There's something good that happened today. You won a game where you were losing. You went ahead and cleaned the dishes. You need to cultivate some degree of positivity in your life, because some of it is there. So there's a cognitive bias in depression that makes us focus on the negative. And I'll give you all a really, really great example of how powerful this is when you start doing this. So if you look at the elderly, there's this idea that the elderly have crappy lives. So you can look at it objectively. There's a great researcher at Stanford who is looking at healthy aging or aging. So as you grow old, your physical body gets worse. The number of friends you have literally reduces because they start dying. So you can look at your life at 40 and your life at 75, and your life at 75 in a lot of objective ways will be worse. But what they found when they really looked into it is that of everyone's life when they're old is objectively worse than when they were young. But their happiness actually increases over time. Wait, what? Happiness for most elderly people increases over time. As they need a hip replacement, as their friends start dying, they start getting happier and happier and happier. You can even look at marriages that stay together, that were unhappy early on, and over time it becomes happier for elderly people. Now everyone's saying impossible. So there's one variable that correlates with when your life feels worse, gets worse for if you're an old person. What is the one variable that determines whether you're okay with it or you're not okay with it? This is beautiful. It's your ability to see your life as bittersweet. That's it. So when old people start to view their lives, the more that they view their life as bittersweet, the more happy they become. Life is not good. Life is not bad. They don't chase good. They don't run away from bad. They accept that life is bittersweet. That's it. So it's like when your friend of 40 years dies, you're overcome with grief. Fair enough. Some people are like, damn, we had some good time over those 40 years. And I realize that I do this too. So I was like thinking about my degenerate gamer years, right? This is like, I'm 20, I used to, stay in the dorm room and order fried rice by the pound. I would get like pounds of fried rice. I would buy 20-ounce bottles of soda because if I bought a 2-liter bottle, it would like run out of the carbonation and then it just tastes nasty. And then a can was like too expensive. But if I got a 20-ounce, I could drink one 20-ounce of Coke in like a 4 to 6 hour period over the course of 2 servings of fried rice, and it would have enough carbonation. I fucking optimize that shit. And if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. And the thing is, people ask me, what would you change about your life? Like, not a damn thing. Like, I don't, those years were fun, man. Like, there was a lot of great stuff in there, dude. Doing Mephisto runs over and over and over again for God knows what. I don't even know why I enjoyed it, but it was so much fun. It was like, yeah, like, let's go hard, son. Arguably worst years of my life, but like so much fun. I wouldn't trade it. Did it cost me things? Did it cost me years and years of my life? It took me a decade to recover from that damage. But man, that debauchery was great. And I see this in my patients who have addictions too. And it's like, yeah, we got to be sober now, but damn, we had some good times when we weren't. So seeing things in a bittersweet capacity. Now, if we look at people who are anhedonic, who have difficulty developing that positive emotionality, what we do is just see the negative. We can't see any positive. So you must look for the positive. Right? So for whatever experience that you had today, what are 3 things that are positive? Either things that you did well, things that you enjoyed, one of the 2. And 3 things that are negative. Just be balanced. This treatment also works for people with imposter syndrome. It works in a different way. So in imposter syndrome, what we do is, what happens in imposter syndrome is someone looks at someone else and they say, wow, that person is talented. And they look at themselves and they say, I'm lucky. They don't think that the other person is lucky and I'm talented. They're always hardworking and talented. They deserve their success and I don't. So what we want to do in imposter syndrome is flip it around. How did that person end up lucky? And what did you do to deserve your success? You got somewhat lucky, fair enough, but it's not like you were all luck. You put in some work. And that person may have worked really hard, but daddy or mommy is also CEO of the company, so maybe that has something to do with it. So we want to be as bittersweet as possible. There's some positives. We want to look at those things. And this is the crazy thing. When we engage in these two techniques of anticipating the positive from our action, we're sort of helping our nucleus accumbens along. And when we're looking at some positivity in what we've done, it counteracts anhedonia. So the really cool thing about this study and this particular technique that people use is that it outperforms negative emotion-focused therapy. It outperforms traditional therapy, which is focused on the negative, because they're cultivating positivity. Okay? Now, let's talk about the second part of hope, which is a roadmap. So this is another thing that I want y'all to really understand. One of the biggest problems that you can do if you're anhedonic and passively suicidal is have a lot of goals. So when I look at my life and I see all of the things that are wrong with it, I think to myself, I have to fix everything. This is the worst thing that you can do. Trying to fix everything in your life. I'm going to show you all something that I think is going to be mind-blowing, was mind-blowing for me. When you try to fix a lot of things, the reward that you get from fixing them goes down. This is insane. If you're trying to fix 5 things from your life, I really want y'all to understand this. I'm going to say this to you. It's not going to make any fucking sense. And then I'm going to prove it to y'all. If you're trying to fix 5 things, the more stuff that you fix, the less reward that you get. So we have this idea, we have this hypothesis that as I make progress, my motivation will increase. Right? Oh, I have 10 things to fix. Let me start working on one. And we start working on one. And then what happens? We give up. And we're like, oh, I'm so undisciplined. I have no willpower. I need to take these supplements. I need to do this. I need to do this. No, it's literally when you have a lot of things to fix, your anhedonic and nucleus accumbens dopaminergic circuitry gets screwed. And I'm going to show you all a fascinating explanation of this. It blew my mind. Okay. So, this is a study that looks at career attainment in 2 people. Now, this person, both people objectively, so here's the left end of career, which means this is like a crappy career. This is like an awesome career. Both persons C and D are moving the same amount. Okay? So I'm moving from, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Person number 1 is moving from 2 to 5. Person number 2 is moving from 2 to 5. The same progress in your career, objectively. This person experiences a lot more value. They say, wow, I did awesome. And this person says, I did pretty good. Even though objectively it's the same. What's the difference? So it has to do with other goals. When person C, so self-care is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When person C has taken care of their body, when they've fulfilled one goal and they have fewer goals, the relative joy that they experience is way higher. Whereas person D has to move in this direction and this direction. So when they make the same amount of progress, they feel less fulfilled. Does this make sense to y'all? What this is actually saying? I'm going to just pause here for a second and just read chat, because I want to see if y'all understand this. If you understand this, nothing else needs to be said. Sort of. No. Okay, it's difficult. So let's look at it again. So y'all understand that moving from 2 to 6 is identical. Good. I'll explain it again, because this is fucking mind-blowing once you understand it, okay? Let me try doing it this way. Okay. So we have 2 people. Here's the goal of self-care, and here's the goal of career. Okay? So this is great career. This is 0 career. This is 0 self-care. This is 100 self-care. This is 0 career. This is 100 career. So what we would think is if I move from here to here, and I move from here to here, objectively, I've made the same amount of progress. The reinforcement, the activation of dopamine, the pleasure, the joy that these two people experience should be the same because they're doing the same. Like literally, it's the same. But what we figured out is that the lower you are with another goal, the less total amount of progress you make, right? So like this person has to go from here to here, and they have to go to here to here. So let's say this is like 50 units of progress, but since this person is so high, this is 50 out of 70. But for this person, this is like 50 out of actually it's 50 out of 100, right? Because, even though I did this, I still have to do all of this. So what this means is that the more goals you have, the more rewarding progress in any direction will be. Does this make sense now? Right? So I want y'all to like really, so not lower as self-care makes them have more energy. We're going to try this again, okay? So here's how I'll do it. Okay. Maybe I said something wrong. Okay. So let me put it this way. If I have no job, I have no girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and my place is a mess, and I'm flabby, skinny, fat, whatever. If I make progress in any of those dimensions, if we forget about the science for a second, I would just want you to think about your experience. If I make progress in any of those dimensions, if I go to the gym for one day, what does your mind tell you? It says, but what about work? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? So literally, this is about the computation. So I want y'all to understand like literally what this paper is. I don't care if people leave. I'm going to try to explain it to you because this is crazy. I want y'all to understand this. So we're going to try it a couple of times. The computational structure of consumatory anhedonia. Do y'all understand what this paper is? Someone sat down and fucking did math. They did math to figure out how the human brain gets pleasure and reward. They did fucking math. They looked at look at this. They figured out if you do something, does that behavior get reinforced? Do you experience pleasure? What is the nature, what is the computation of pleasure, wanting, and behavioral reinforcement? They figured it out. Okay? And then they tried to explain it, and it's hard, but I'll try to explain it again. The key thing is that, let me put it to you in this way. How many dimensions does this person need to improve in? They're already at the top of self-care. They don't need to improve self-care at all. They're fulfilled here. So then what happens is they only need to move in this direction, right? So if they move 4 points in this direction, they get a maximum amount of feeling good about it. Whereas this person has 2 things to do. So the more things they have to do, the less reinforcement, the less reward they get from progress. That's the key thing to understand. And it makes sense, right? So when I have 10 things to do, if I do one of them, I don't feel great. I get very little reward out of it. It weighs them down. Very well said. Every goal that you have in your mind that is incomplete weighs down the the dopaminergic activation from all of the other progress. It's diluted. Very well said. Right? So now we understand, so everyone's kind of telling us, look, focus on one thing at a time. Make small tasks. Do I have a visitor? Hello? Okay. I don't know if I have a visitor or not. It's weird. Okay. All right? I was on a roll. All right, let's go back. So, like, it's diluting. That's a really good way to put it. And that's our experience, right? Okay, this is... She's just standing at the door, opening it like a fraction of an inch at a time. And then when I'm like, okay, if she wants to come in, just like come in, but don't just sit there and like what the... Okay. All right. So this is what I'm saying about anhedonia, okay? So as you guys have more goals, and this is the trap of being in passive suicidal ideation. I've fucking seen it time and time again because someone comes in, they're like, everything is wrong with my life. And so it's a drop in the ocean. It's a drop in the bucket. Like, I did this thing, no, and now we've figured out the computational anhedonia circuitry. We've figured out how this works. That literally the parts of your brain that say, good job, burst of motivation, let's do it again tomorrow, behavioral reinforcement, that's dopamine. And this is going to sound so fucking based, but like, let's go. When you jerk off, what else are you thinking about? Where are all of the other goals? Are you thinking to myself, oh my God, I've got to play video games and then I've got to jerk off. Oh my God, I just jerked off. What about all the video games I'm supposed to play? Right? This fucking shit is banned anyway. It's not going to show up anywhere because there's a suicide in the title. So let's just go. Algo's GG'd, so we're going to try to help y'all here and now. That's it. Like, y'all get that, right? So this is why video games are so alluring. Why do they activate? We know video games activate dopamine, but why do they activate dopamine? Because when I'm playing a game, I see a little ping trophy. I'm not thinking about anything else. The reason that video games are so addictive and they secrete so much dopamine is because they take advantage of this. They make you forget about your self-care. So any progress in the game is in absence of all of the stuff that you have to do in life. Whereas any progress that you make in real life, what does your mind do? Is in the context of all of the things that you have to do in life. And literally what happens is you will get less dopamine secreted. If you get less dopamine secreted, you will have less pleasure. You will have less behavioral reinforcement. If you don't have pleasure, you're not going to do it again tomorrow. So you're constantly fighting an uphill battle. You can't experience pleasure from progress in life. This is how you wind up in this passive, suicidal, addicted to technology crap. So it's over? Not at all. In fact, quite the opposite. Because we know that if you start using your brain in this way, if you start activating your brain in the same way that a video game does, the opposite will happen. You will become addicted to progress. You will get so much motivation for each step forward that you take. You're like, fuck yeah, let's go. And how do we do it? 3 things. Number 1, anticipate the internal reward of doing an action. It's not about accomplishing anything. It's not about getting a girlfriend. It's about, well, look, today when I wake up, I'm like, I've wasted a year of my life. Fuck me. And then tomorrow I wake up, I'm going to say, I've wasted 364 out of the last 365 days. At least yesterday was a good day. At least I wasn't the same. And then your mind is going to tell you it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. You need to do more because we have all these goals in our mind. That's how it bludgeons us. That's how it weakens us. That's how it destroys our motivation. So look for internal reward. Oh God, thank God that when I walk past the kitchen, I don't look at that and feel some small amount of self-loathing has been reduced. Thank God. At least that's clean. Look at your internal reward. At least I studied today for 1 hour. That's something. It's better than 0. That's number one. You have to anticipate it. You have to think about how you're going to feel in the future. Second thing that we want to do is bias towards the positive. So I get that today was a mess, man. I've been there. But not everything is a mess. There are some things that are good. At least that's something. And this is the principle of bittersweetness. You have to be able to see both. Even people who are very, very positive all the time, they're going to be unhappy too. Remember, this study about old people and healthy aging and mental health was not people who think happy all the time. Right? It could have been that if that was true, but it's bittersweet. Yogis figured this stuff out a couple thousand years ago. And the third thing, and I encourage y'all to just notice, just pay attention to what happens in your mind when you make progress. Like, it's wild. It's like, oh my God, I need to do this, 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 I need to do this. And then that's exhausting. Let me go back to playing games. And it's like, what just happened there? Progress now decreases your motivation? No wonder we're screwed in life. And there are those other people out there, the mythical people. These people like, oh my God, they progressed. And they don't get lazy. They keep going. What? Usually when I work a hard day, I'm like, all right, that's my hard day for the week. And they're like, they're going to work harder tomorrow? Like, how does that work? This is how it works. Because their brain is different. Because their brain, when they make progress, they feel very satisfied. And they're like, wow, that was great. Oh my God, that was such a great yoga workout. And here I am like suffering and sweating and like, oh my God, everything hurts. They're like, oh my God, that's so positive. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? We Fit trainer in real life. Right? And it's the way that they respond. Like their brain is like, and it's not that you're like a loser. It's like their anhedonic circuitry is activating and yours is not. Right? Okay. All right. So we're going to take questions. I had a bunch of stuff to cover, but instead I spent an hour and a half on this because I think you'll need to understand this. Right? Have one goal at a time. Or, I mean, you can have multiple goals. In your mind, don't let other goals pollute the goal that you're working on. That's the right answer. Let's just talk for a second so you guys can start asking questions. I'm going to pay attention. Let me see if I think this paper is, let me see. Yeah, this is an open access paper, so let me find it for y'all real quick. Here's the link. Posted in both chats, because now we live in a world where we have 2 chats. Okay. All right. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to collect my thoughts. All right. Okay. So does this explain my apprehension to take part in Inktober this year? It's a daily drawing in pen and ink challenge. It's 31 artworks in 31 days, and I'm scared as shit to commit. Okay. Let's understand a couple of things. Okay. So this is absolutely at play with things like Inktober or NaNoWriMo or whatever, right? So where we like don't want to sign up for something and we're scared to commit. So let's understand what happens. The first is, why are we scared to commit? Because we don't believe in ourselves. We don't believe that we can do something for 31 days straight. And we're not wrong to lack faith in ourselves because our brain knows us. Our brain is like, bruh, girl, I know you. I was there when you were born. I was there before you were born. I was pumping your heart and digesting your food and taking care of peristalsis before you could even, I was shitting for you before you could shit for yourself. I was there at the beginning. I know you. I know that you can't do this. Right? And then there's another protective mechanism because the brain is like, look, bro, let me explain something to you. I know that you want to write. Yeah, I know that you want to do Inktober, and I know it's really important to you. You want to be this awesome person who made 31 drawings in 31 days. I'm for it, buddy. I believe in that goal for you. I want you to get there, but don't sign up for this because here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign up for this, and you're going to believe in yourself. And then what is inevitably going to happen is you're going to fail. And when you fail, the way that you beat yourself up is going to be so harsh that you'll believe in yourself even less. So the goal here is you want to believe in yourself. I'm actually supporting you in that goal. Don't sign up for this. This is how it works. The brain knows. The brain is just executing the directives that you give it, given the resources that it's got, which is you. So how do we solve this? Absolutely solvable, right? We need to change our perspective. We need to change our perspective from success. So right now I'm apprehensive and I want to do it. I'm too scared to sign up. We need to change success from completing it at 31 days to overcoming our apprehension. Shift to internal rewards during the process. Can I get myself to sign up? How many days can I go? What did I expect? I haven't drawn for 31 days in a row ever. Let's see how many days I can get. So I did this myself. So recently I've been doing a much more deeper set of meditation. So I did a pretty intense system of meditation that I kind of signed up for. And I said to myself, failure is inevitable. I'm not going to be able to do this. Requires a lot of time. Requires a lot of discipline. I'm not a disciplined person. Something cool happened. It's a 40-day meditation stretch. So I failed a couple of times. So I failed after 2 days. Then I was like, skipped a day. I'm starting over. I can just wait one day to start again. So I was I'll just start on Monday. Right? I screwed it up on Friday, so there's no point in ruining the weekend. Tell yourself these kinds of things. Something cool happened. Once I hit day 10, do I want to start over from day 1? I'm 25% through. I don't want to redo this. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to skip today. And then it's day 15 rolls around. Okay, we're almost halfway there. Let's keep it going. Day 20 rolls around. And you're like, great, we're doing awesome. We're halfway there. I don't want to screw it up. Just meditate today. There's a change in your thinking apparatus when you change what you're looking at. Failure is inevitable. Let's see how hard we can get. Wow, this is awesome. 7 days in, 8 days in, 9 days in, something beautiful will happen. Something transformative will happen. You will realize the wildest thing that you can ever realize, which is that whether you meditate for 40 days in a row depends on you. You can control it all. You can draw for 31 days. You can draw for 62 days. You can draw for 365 days in a year. It's in your hands. You're the only one who can fail, and you're the only one who can succeed. It doesn't depend on anything else. This is a sense of agency. This is what starts to build. And when there's a sense of agency, what are y'all feeling right now? Now there's hope. You see so quickly. What do I say? The statements that I make are not about hope. They're about agency. You can meditate starting today for the next year. You can meditate every day. You can draw something every day. So someone saying it's true 38% average in high school, 95% in uni, all mindset. Because this is the crazy thing, y'all. What do you control in this world? Just yourself. And also, you can control yourself. Right? So this is a later stage revelation. This is like unlocking prestige levels at level 20 or whatever. So, but it's absolutely true, and it'll change your life. Like, legit. And that's where hope comes from. That's how we deal with suicidality. Is like realizing one day. And that's why I don't think y'all should kill yourselves, because I've seen this happen time and time and time again. And the craziest thing about it as a psychiatrist is not that they're able to achieve, but how effortless their success is after. Because right now, when I work with people who are like addicted to stuff and passively suicidal, every day is an effort. Every moment is an effort. It seems so hard to do the smallest thing. So your brain makes a calculation. It looks into the future and says, I want to accomplish all of these things. But if it takes so much effort to do a little bit, I don't have the effort to be able to do all of what I want to accomplish. It is an unsolvable problem because the friction, the coefficient of friction is so high towards moving that you look at like, oh my God, I have to push this thing all the way down the road. It's so heavy. But just like friction, there's a coefficient of static friction and there's a coefficient of kinetic friction. That you only need to expend energy and overcome friction when you're accelerating. Actually, that's not true. Right? Because friction is the opposing force. So you got to constantly accelerate to oppose friction. But there's a difference between energy investment for acceleration and velocity. Getting from 0 to 80, that requires a lot of energy. Staying at 80, super easy. Or 100 if we're talking kilometers. Right? So this is the crazy thing. The calculations that y'all are making when you're suicidal and you look at your life and you're like, that assumes that the effort that you have to put in is at this rate. But this is the crazy thing. It's like literally your brain changes. It becomes motivated. Then you don't need discipline. You don't need willpower. So sometimes people are like, I don't know how to say this, but so I was telling my wife the other day that I was kind of tired because I worked 13 days in a row. And I was tired on day 13. Like I started getting tired around day like 10 and 11. And people are like, how, like, what does that mean? Like, I don't understand. And it's like, yeah. Like, it's crazy to me too. There are times in my life where it took so much effort to do so little. And now it takes so little effort to do so much. And this is what I want to share with y'all more than anything else. Like the reason that I'm optimistic is not because I'm Dr. K and believe in yourself. It's like, friends, it's so much easier than we realize. I'm not a hard worker. Like, I know I said I worked a lot, but I really believe that. I'm not a hard worker. It wasn't hard. What I want to teach y'all is not to be disciplined, not to have a ton of willpower. It's to make your life easy and productive. Once you understand how your brain fucking works, once you understand that every time you play a video game, you get a dopaminergic surge with a behavioral reinforcement. Every time you play a video game, you will reinforce wanting to play a video game tomorrow. But the moment that you get a dopaminergic surge from accomplishing a task, you will want to work tomorrow. The neurobiology is the same. It's the same brain. The problem is that tech has figured out how to activate these circuits very easily. And the real world can't compete. But you can still absolutely activate gigantic amounts of dopamine. Like, I'm working right now, right? Do I seem tired to you? Am I going to be tired in like 30 minutes? Absolutely. It's going to hit me. Work isn't, I mean, it is tiring, like physiologically. But mentally, it's like, I fucking wake up for this stuff. And y'all should too. The key thing is really extracting that anhedonia. I mean, not extracting, the opposite. Extracting that dopamine. Okay. How can I activate? So, okay, let's just recap a little bit. Okay, someone's asking, is there any danger to rewarding yourself for achieving goals? When I get something big accomplished, I like celebrate getting it done. Is that healthy? So rewarding yourself for accomplishing a big goal is a double-edged sword. So let me ask y'all something. So let's say I work really hard and I finish my thesis, and then I go out to party afterward. At the party, I'm having a blast. And then I get some kind of behavioral reinforcement. So the question is, what is happening? So theoretically, what I really could fall in love with is the party itself. And then why not just party tomorrow? And why not just party the next day? Right? So like, I know it sounds kind of weird. So on the one hand, I think it is absolutely good to celebrate a win. It's good to have a party. But once again, the issue is, what are you celebrating? So at a party, when you celebrate an accomplishment, usually people are congratulating you for the accomplishment. That's what's really healthy. Because the positive dopamine that you get is contingent upon the success. But sometimes what can happen is what we really fall in love with is the party, not the work. If we don't tie those two things together. And I think the healthiest thing to do is to not celebrate. I mean, you can celebrate the achievement of the thing, but your primary reinforcement should come during the process. So I'm working on a project right now. On Monday, I wrote 1,397 words of that project. Secret. The value is like, I look at that, I look at my word count at the beginning of the writing, and I even do this nowadays where I'll open up a new window. So I start a new document when I write, so that I see it starts at 0. And then it ends up at 1397. I copy it, I paste it into the other document, and then I delete the new document. But when the document is 42,000 words and I write 1,397 words, the reward I get is way less. There's another kind of reward when you open up a document and you see 42,000 words written, you're like, fuck yeah. Is it ever going to see the light of day? Who knows? Right? So it's about understanding the circuits in your brain and how to activate them in the right way. Does this only apply to adults? No. What about saving progress to notes? So as someone who's working on multiple goals, how would you prevent them from polluting each other? Do you think charting out each goal and the progress made to see it would be helpful and out of the biased mind? Yes and no. So this is where you have to look at your mind and how your mind responds to these kinds of things. So personally, I find it valuable to like write out a bunch of my goals and like track them in various ways. But I also find that like on a given day, I'm very, very microscopic about progress. So like the example I just shared, I'll start a document and I won't even look at the rest of the document. And by the way, it's not like I developed these techniques after doing all this neuroscience. I figured out what makes me tick. And now as I read all this neuroscience, I was like, holy crap, this is what I figured out. This is what I do. This is what a lot of people that I work with who are very successful, they do this automatically. That's what makes them different from me and you. But the whole thing is that you're not different from me. Some people stumble upon revolutionary motivational technology. And some of us don't. But once you know the tech, like, there's a difference between this person developed this build for this champion. And they were the first ones that did it. And oh my God, it's OP. And what do the rest of us do? We copy the meta. So today, what I want y'all to do is copy this meta. Pay attention to yourself. Look at what happens when you pollute one goal with another goal. How do I feel proud about my achievements when I don't have time to process them because I'm taking care of so many things together? So that is like a challenging thing because, first of all, the perception of lacking time is a huge part of the problem. I think this is actually a good example. We can transition. There's a great post here. Hold on. I just had a brain fart. Okay, let's take a look at this. I don't care anymore. Any tips to change that? I'm turning 35 in a month, and I've noticed a change in my personality that has almost crept up on me. I'm not sure if it's a good thing. I feel like I have run out of fucks to give. I don't try to make friends at work. I keep my acquaintances at a distance, and I find it difficult to be really motivated or excited about work anymore. I do my job and go home. In a way, I feel free. Freedom from desire to have people like me, to make friends, to have to meet social obligations. But at the same time, I feel like I should go out and do things instead of spending my evenings and weekends either on my PC, at the gym, or at the grocery store. Any top tips on how to find fucks to give? So I want y'all to pay attention to this, right? There's another post here. I'm 34 and don't care about anything. This is from our community. As the title says, I'm at the average age that a male should have a family, a career, a hobby, some prospect for the future, or some small combination. I have nothing, and I'm not here to whine or cry. I'm here to try to understand why I don't care. I'm not motivated by money, owning things, success, women, fame, or status. It's all so shallow for me. I've probably spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours listening to Dr. K's, Peterson's, Huberman's, Willings, Williamson's, Rogan's, you name it, podcasts and lectures. And nothing will move me. Let's stop right there. Y'all should be able to answer this question. Now, what did you notice? Tell me, please, God. I hope y'all get this right because that means my work is done and I can start my weekend. Very good. Focusing on too many things, lots of attitude, lots of goals. In both posts, we pulled two random ass. By the way, these posts were not pulled after I came up with the thing. Okay? Like, these were selected ahead of time. Too many goals. No internal reflection. Right? And these saying, I don't understand why I don't want anything. I've tried to want this. 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 That's the problem. You've tried to want too many things. Too many goals. No internal reward for any of your actions. It's about accomplishment. It's about fame. It's about success. It's about women. It's about money. It's about men. It's about respect. And I've listened to Dr. K for so long. Yes. Because Dr. K can't do it for you. Right? This is the trap that I fall into, which is that I can only do so much. I try to break things down, but if people listen to my podcast, but y'all never do anything about it, then what do you expect? See, this information, once we understand computational anhedonia circuitry, which is what we learned today, we understand there's no computational anhedonia circuitry paper, and none of those variables are listening to podcasts. It's not one of the variables on there. It's not in the paper, I think. I didn't understand some of those mathematical equations. Right? And this is where a lot of y'all will say, okay, I just watch and it's in procrastination and this and that. That's like literally like, I don't know what else to do, y'all. We have community events and we have coaching. This is why we build this stuff. Why do y'all think that we have an adulting challenge? Why do y'all think we have a coaching program? Because these are the things that actually help human beings in a consistent way. Right? So the adulting challenge is about like engaging y'all and giving y'all milestones and goals and things like that. Right? Where like you're getting these points and things like that. We're trying to help y'all with that. And then coaching is fantastic because it solves a lot of the problems that people struggle with. We see a 58% increase in sense of purpose and direction in life at about 12 weeks. 58% increase. That's what we're working on. We'll see reductions in things like feelings of sadness and feelings of feeling anxious and things like that. We see reductions in some outcomes of like depression and anxiety. Those are pretty good too, around 30%, give or take. But that's not what the focus of the program is. The focus of the program is building something. The focus of the program is working with you on a motivational interviewing standpoint to try to accomplish your goals. The focus of the program is to help people start changing the way that they think. And so the biggest mistake that people come into is they're like, give me a plan to fix my life. Your coach is going to say, I can't do that. It's not about giving you a plan. It's not about an answer. It's about changing the way that you interact with the world. What are your cognitive biases? Coaches will challenge you. And the other problem that we have is the same problem of, oh, I want to be a professor one day, but it may not be worth it. Everyone's like, I don't know if coaching will help for me. That's why you should do it. Because I want y'all to think about this for a second. If you are relying on a guarantee of success in order to act, where are you going to end up? We're also worried about wasting time and wasting money. That shit's going to go whether you use it productively or not. And the number one thing that like really kind of frustrates me is like, it's crazy how much people will invest in everything around them except for themselves. We have this idea that I should be able to do it by myself. And fine, if you want to do it by yourself, do it by yourself. We try to give y'all, today's stream is a great example of us spending 2 hours trying to equip you with the tools that you need to put your life together, to increase your motivation, hopefully deal with that sense of hopelessness. But if y'all want to have progressed, 8 weeks from now, it's September. When Christmas rolls around, do you want to be in a different place? Then you need to invest in it. Are y'all struggling with things like loneliness and socializing? And you don't feel good about yourself. And you're not sure how to jump into a conversation. You don't quite know how to. Everyone says you need to be a good listener, but no one teaches you how. Then sign up for group coaching. The problem is that everyone thinks like, oh, like, can you make a guide about it? Sure, I've done that. But there's a difference between getting in the pool and swimming around and watching a swimming video on YouTube. And that's the biggest problem, is that no one wants to get in the water. And so I'm happy to meet y'all where you're at. Right? I have a lot of faith that working with individuals is very, very effective. It's actually when I'm at my best. You guys think that this is what I'm really good at? I'm decent at this. It's working with people. then it's fun. That's good. Yeah, you're feeling called out. And it's like, I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, by all means, like, I'm not going to stop streaming. I'm going to continue doing this. But at some point, y'all have to decide, how much am I willing to, like, invest in myself? And whether that's doing Inktober for 31 days, like, I don't care. Like, coaching is great. It's evidence-based. It works fantastic. We're presenting at a national addiction conference about our program. I'm pretty sure it works. But if you guys want to do Inktober, like, do Inktober. I understand NaNoWriMo, which I tried to do a couple of times. They had some problems with, people treating minors poorly and stuff like that. So I think it kind of fell apart, if you guys know what that is. Yeah, so it's like time to commence the winter arc early, I guess. I love that more than anything else that I've seen today. Not to, I know a lot of y'all are brilliant. See, this is the thing. You guys wait. Why not start your redemption arc today? And if you kind of think about it, right? Like, I just want y'all, like, hopefully this will sink in. I don't think I can say this much anymore. Your sense of agency in life comes from starting your redemption arc today. See, we think power and control in life is about what happens at the end of the redemption arc. That's not true. The redemption arc starts with you taking an action. That's you taking control. You don't have the control until you act. That's the rub. Is we think like, okay, at the end of the redemption arc, I will be a better human being, and then it'll be easy for me to take control. And it will. So start your redemption arc today. Whatever it is. If it's signing up for the adulting challenge, if it's doing Inktober, if it's saying like, okay, my redemption arc is like this. And now the challenge is that part of the reason that we have things structured the way that we have them, right? So like in the coaching program, we have like a set amount of weeks. It's not the same for everybody, but we have a rough idea of like what we're tracking and things like that. Because if you're ready to start today, if you have the motivation to start today, the problem is that, remember, we also need a roadmap. It's hard to develop the roadmap in one day. And that's why I think like taking the plunge is the right way to go. If y'all want to sign up for the adulting challenge, which is free, by the way, it's a Discord community thing. Just sign up on exclamation point adulting. If y'all want to sign up for coaching, I'm sure there's a command that's exclamation point coaching. And like, I mean, those are great. We believe in them. They're fantastic. But also like, if you're struggling with suicidal ideation, you're depressed, you're anxious, see a psychiatrist, see a therapist, call them now. I'll give y'all another last tip. So I love calling people when they're not around and leaving voicemails. So I found that if I want to do anything, what I used to do is like, oh, I need to call them when the office is open. But what I actually found, I found a neat trick, which is that if I call them on a Saturday and I don't have to commit to anything, they will call me back on Monday or Tuesday, usually. And it's way easier. I don't know if this makes sense motivationally. It's way easier when someone is calling you, hey, when do you want to come in? Like, I don't have to muster up the motivation. Does that make sense? So it's like if all I need is a spurt of motivation to just place the call and leave a voicemail. And then like later on when their office is open, they will call me. And it's way easier since I'm externally motivated. If someone calls me, I'm much more likely to, see it through. Do y'all see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I have a spurt of motivation now. It's hard to say no when they call me. Therefore, we're going to use these two things. So I think it's like, there are a lot of things that I feel like calculation, like analysis paralysis, like almost gets in the way. I mean, it does. That's why we call it paralysis, right? It's not like analysis. I don't know. What's a word that is action that not rhymes with analysis. You know, it's not like analysis motivational burst. Like, that's not what happens. It's like analysis paralysis. And everyone's trying to think about everything before they do anything. It's like you got to do stupid stuff sometimes. What in your mind is stupid has not been figured out. Success is achieved through experience and iteration, not perfect planning. It's messy. It's kind of like when I do work with people who struggle with sex. Either they're nervous or they have psychogenic erectile dysfunction, or take your pick. You know, and they try to figure everything out. They're like, oh, this happens and this happens and this happens, and I don't know what to do in this case, and I don't know what to do in this case. And then I know what to do with these two fingers, but this finger I'm confused about. You know, like whatever. And it's like, I mean, the thing that I've learned with all of my patients who have struggled with sexuality is like there's no amount of like research that is going to be a substitute for experience and iteration. Experience and iteration, experience and iteration, experience and iteration. That's at least my approach. Other people may be way better at planning, but I'm like, hey, let's show up. Like, I'll give you all an example, right? So I had like 6 posts to go over today, and we got through one because I got a boner for the neuroscience. And that's how it is. So like, maybe this was great in some ways. It feels old school. Like, it feels like, you know, when I used to show up and stream and I didn't have anything to do. We're just going to like hang out and talk about whatever the fuck I feel like. What are his fingers doing? You know, there's a reason that we have the camera set up the way it is. Let me tell you what. Those were the days. So, like, look at that. What are we doing now? Bittersweet, chat. Bittersweet. Look at that. And how does it feel to be bittersweet? Those were the days. I was there before Dr. K became this fucking thing. Back when he was one of us, it's bittersweet. We can look back at the past and we can say, that was great. You see what I mean? Like, there were a lot of problems. Like, my mic, like, I was using this. You guys remember this thing? Back in the day? This crappy ass mic, look. No, it's not plugged in. Right? Those were the days. Yeah, back when I wore too many button-ups because I was still working in a hospital. And my boss got mad at me one day because I wasn't wearing a tie. And I was like, bruh, you got to be kidding me. And he's like, nope. I mean, I didn't say that. That was what I said in my head. Much like y'all, I say a lot of things. Most of my conversations happen in here. Yeah, Blue Yeti's a good one. Anyway. Mike's great. We still used it recently. Okay? Dr. K's looking swole. Yeah, I started, so true story. I started working with a personal trainer, and I was like, you know, I thought about it for many years and like, oh, I can do it myself. And I did push-ups at home and like, I like took care of myself. Okay. But then I just took the plunge. It's like, oh my God, it costs money and I can do push-ups at home. And it's like, yeah, sometimes it like, you just got to take the plunge and just sign up. And it's been great. Like, I loved it. Loved it. Okay, can we summarize the solutions? Yeah, but I'm done. It's Saturday at 2 o'clock. I'm done working. So if you guys want to summarize the solutions, y'all can, I'll read whatever y'all write. But I'm done working. Someone's asking, do I drink caffeine? Do you guys think this is sober? Come on, chat. All right, what are the solutions? Let's start with the problem. Okay, hold on. All right. So anticipate the internal reward of doing the action biased towards the positive. Okay, good. Focus on one thing at a time. Less goals and orders. Okay. Solution 1, get a personal trainer. Okay. So we're going to summarize now, right? All right. See, you guys, see what I did there is I was like, man, I'm tired. I don't feel like summarizing again. And then I saw all the answers that y'all are, and I'm like, all right, you guys, we got to start from the top, man. And then I feel focus on fingers. Okay. Bias towards parts and rewards from accomplishments. Okay, this is all great. Y'all get it. Okay, so let's start with the basic, okay? So we have a growing passive suicidal ideation epidemic, IMO. 47% of people who are in mental health treatment and or have diagnoses will experience suicidal ideation at some point in their life. This is a problem. Why are people suicidal? So your brain is looking at your life and it is seeing a downward trajectory. There's a loss of hope. Now, what does that mean? Do we mean it's an emotion? No, we mean hope like a neuroscience definition of hope, which is a combination of sense of agency and roadmap for progress. If you don't know how to progress and you don't believe that you have power, you're not going to feel hope. So how do you hope? This is a sense of hopelessness. Now, people lose their sense of agency because I tried a lot of things and everything is falling apart and I'm too old now. I've never been in a relationship. I'm stuck in this 9-to-5 or I don't have a job, whatever. And so you look at your life and you see a downward trajectory. And there's not like malice, right? Hopefully, then we get into the active suicidal ideation realm. But it's kind of like if I went to bed today and I never woke up, would I be okay with that? Yeah. I don't need this existence anymore. That's passive SI. How do we fix this? The other problem is that people try to do things, but it doesn't work. What does that mean, doesn't work? They expend a lot of willpower. They do a ton of research. And then they take some action, but the action brings no joy. They don't feel like they're making progress. They feel like their work is insufficient. They don't experience pleasure from it. And sometimes people think, oh, it's because I'm addicted to pornography, and that can be a part of it. So remember, now we're talking dopaminergic circuitry. So a couple of key things to understand. Anytime you experience pleasure, you will experience behavioral reinforcement. You are literally, pleasure is programming yourself to act. That's what it is. And now we're kind of stuck because the only things that give us pleasure are these technological kind of things or drugs or whatever. Everything else feels empty, right? That's why we end up passively suicidal. The good news is that there are actually ways that we can change that. So the first is focus on internal rewards. And this is like more difficult than it seems. So think about the slices of your day when you look at your life and like, fuck, I wish it wasn't like this. And out of all those things, can you do something to make that feeling go away? So this is like simple stuff, right? So do it ahead of time so that when that situation arises, you've made some progress. So when I wake up in the morning, I see a sink full of dishes. All I'm going to do is do the dishes the night before. And when I do the dishes the night before, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to say, anticipate tomorrow when I wake up, I'm going to walk into this kitchen and I'm going to see that the dishes are done. And even though everything else in my life is falling apart, this one thing will be better. Now, you have to be super careful here because if you are listening to this and you are thinking, then I will wake up tomorrow and I will be happy, no, you will get a tiny spurt of dopamine. You will get a tiny amount of behavioral reinforcement. And what you're fighting against is the years of dopaminergic programming. So anticipate the internal reward of action. It cannot be anticipate an external reward. This doesn't work if it's like I'm studying today and I'll get an A in the class in 3 months. Doesn't work. Doesn't activate your dopaminergic circuitry. unless you have high conscientiousness, in which case that's a different thing. If you're a degen like me, doesn't work. So the reward for studying is, 5 p.m. rolled around. Oh my God, time to play some Deadlock. Fuck yeah, I did some work today. Even if I wake up too late tomorrow, I got some of it done. That's the way that you'll need to think. Anticipate an internal reward. Second thing, focus on bittersweetness or seeing the positive. Even in the worst life, there are moments of joy. So I remember when I was at the ashram for the first time, I was probably like the most depressed I had ever been, the most lonely I've ever been. And one day, about 10 days in, I noticed that there was a fruit seller who came to the ashram apparently every week, and he sold fruit. And like, I'm staying in an ashram, so the food is like it's nutritious, but it doesn't taste the best. And it's also like cheap because I don't have a whole lot of money. So it's like a lot of like root vegetables and like whole grains and stuff. So it's very nutritious, but it doesn't taste good. And I realized I haven't had anything sweet in like 10 days, like not a pinch of sugar, not even a single piece of fruit, maybe a banana, now that I think about it. And I bought a mango. And even though I was super depressed, I got home, realized I couldn't cut a mango because I don't have a knife. And so I was like, fuck it, this mango smells so good. So I like tore it apart and I ate it like in an animal, like an animal. Like I was just like, I tore apart the mango and I like bit into it, and it was the most fucking delicious mango of my life. So even if your life sucks and stuff like that and you don't have a knife, right? There's a lot of people in the world who are like, I can't eat mango. I don't have a knife. Fair enough. So try to extract some positivity. Notice some positivity throughout the day. This is a cognitive restructuring technique. Focus on the positive. It's not ignore the negative. That'll turn into toxic positivity. That'll end up hurting you. But let's just stop being biased towards the negative. There's plenty of negativity without needing our bias to amplify it. Like, come on, dude. 9 out of 10 things in our life right now can be negative. We don't need to turn it into 10 out of 10. Let's hold on to the one. Third thing is be super careful about how you set your goals if your life is empty and everything is going wrong. Because the more goals you have in your mind, literally the less dopaminergic activation you will get from progress, and the less behavioral reinforcement and motivation you will get to act again. And if I want to say there is one thing in life that separates winners and losers, the biggest handicap I can possibly think of is to not get any kind of pleasure, motivation, or behavioral reinforcement from progress. So this is the crazy thing. When I work with people who are suicidal, passively suicidal, totally fine, never waking up tomorrow, what I find is that they're actually incredibly capable. I find that their willpower is through the roof. Because I want y'all to really think about what they're dealing with. They're dealing with no internal motivation. So every little thing that they do is a Herculean effort of willpower. When I work with patients who are depressed and have trouble getting out of bed that day, this is not people who lack willpower. It's the opposite. The things that the rest of us take for granted, like getting out of bed, becomes climbing a mountain for this person. And then what I find, the reason I have hope is because I find that actually like the things that they think they're bad at, they're actually really good at. They're incredibly resilient, oftentimes incredibly intelligent, have a lot of willpower, and all we do is we transition them to turning on the dopaminergic circuitry, to activating this stuff. And then it's like, wow, you should see them fly. And the reason that I have hope is not because your life can get better. It's because your life can get easier. And that better doesn't have to come at the cost of effort. That things become better and easier. They start going hand in hand. Right now, everything is hard and you have nothing to show for it. If we look at it mathematically, the opposite should also be true. You can have everything and not be working very hard. And that's been my experience. And what is the definition of not working hard? The definition of not working hard is effort with dopamine. We don't call playing video games hard, but we can do it for 8 hours a day. You type in Excel or play video games. Why is one hard and one easy? It's the response of dopamine. To be addicted to progress. Woohoo! That's great. How much for the magic dopamine switch? Beautiful question, ZC37. And if you really pay attention to the question, you'll see why it's a bad question. The answer is a little more. A little more. How much more? Don't set the dopamine. See, you see how fast it happens. If I say it takes 18 days to free the dopamine switch, that's going to screw you. We're not asking, the dopamine switch is now. Now. In this moment, look at the last 2 hours. What do you think? Everyone's like, oh no, now I have to do this. No. Wrong. You don't have to do it. Look back at the last 2 hours. Think about all the things that you could have done instead of coming here. Think about all the things that you did while you were watching me on the second monitor. Oh, split attention, multiple goals. Let me be efficient. You didn't have fun and you didn't pay attention to this. Shocking. No wonder we're stuck. Stop calling you out. Thank you, but no. Efficiency. Fucking reduces your dopaminergic impulse. Right? Twinful is saying, I rarely watch you on the second monitor. You're relegated to my third. Yeah, dude. I know. Look, the only person I'm catching here is myself, okay? I'm not actually psychic. It's just, I've been there. I've got a second monitor. Okay? All right. So, seriously, y'all, like, don't give up, dude. I'm telling you, there is an awesome life for 99% of y'all. And if your mind is like, but I'm in the 1%, like, why, right? Why do you think you're in the 1%? I can't say that everyone is going to be happy in life. I just can't say that. But, like, seriously, overwhelmingly, and I use that word quite a bit, but it really is. Like, I mean, I want to say 99 out of 100 patients I've worked with. I can think of 3 in my career that kind of didn't help them much. And I work with, like, hundreds of people. Like, success rates are really high, y'all. Like, this is doable. And we see it a lot. Like, I mean, I was... you know, like, there's a bunch of people who were, like, screwed up at some point in their life and were just empty and had no purpose and fucking failing out of things. You know, and they, like, turn their life around. And, like, it's doable. Absolutely doable. Thanks for watching from France. Love it out there. Can't wait to go back. Yeah, so like Magic Monkey saying, I did good today. I woke up, cleaned, cooked, learned something about stuff like that. Come to Brazil, would love to. Dude, I've heard Poland is amazing now. I was in LA a little while ago. I ran into a couple of y'all noobs in New York recently. Yeah, dude. So look, I would love to travel all over the world. and visit with all of you, but there's work to do. So I can't do that until I'm done. And I can't be done as long as y'all are struggling. So I want to come to Bulgaria. I want to go to Poland. I want to go to France. I want to go to Brazil. I want to go to LA. I want to go back to Croatia. Plitvice, like, sign me up, dude. Sign me up. Dubrovnik's a little bit overrated, but northwestern part, fantastic. Croatia's a gorgeous country. I'll have a story to tell you all about how I got stuck in Croatia one day. I want to go all the places. Quebec sounds great. Love Montreal. Transylvania, cool. I need to go to India, the country of my ancestral birth. Finland, sure. I'm happy to go there, but look, man, like, I'm happy to come, but who's going to, like, I can't go because I have to do this. Wow, dude, this is so global. Like, what the? Czech Republic, Austin, Chicago, Turkey, I'd go to North Korea. Sure. Austria, Russia, Sweden, Argentina, Philippines, Colorado, New Zealand. Like, so I don't know if you guys know this. I think we've had people sign up for coaching or buy guides from 121 countries. That's what we're here for. 121 countries. Like, that's cool. Like, I don't oftentimes take pride. Most of the time I get my kicks by, calling you guys out. But, like, sometimes I feel proud of the work that we've done. And to be able to help people in countries where they don't have access to great mental health support, like, that makes me very happy. Like, I'm happy for that. And honestly, like, look, I'll travel all over the world. Sure. Sounds awesome. I want to do it. You don't have to convince me. But I don't think I can until all of y'all get better. So when y'all have built your lives and it's awesome and you're fucking crushing it and you're happy and you're things like that and you're wasting less time on Twitch or YouTube or whatever, like, that's when I will travel. When the work is done or when someone else takes over and then I can rest. But until that happens, it's 13 days a week. And I get a day of break now. This is good. I'm going to take a day off. Right? So seriously, like, go fix yourselves, chat. Go, like, take care of it and pay attention to your dopamine and cut yourself a little bit of slack. Don't try to take on so much at the same time. Reduce your goals down to one at a time. Try to make it as microscopic as possible. And if you don't make it microscopic, that's fine too. What I want y'all to do is when you don't make it microscopic, look at what your mind does. Just as good. Pay attention. I did this thing today. Why do I feel unsatisfied? Oh, interesting. That's because my mind, instead of saying this is good, my mind says I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. Absence of pleasure comes from the concept of not enough. The moment that you turn it into not enough, I need to do so much more. So stop. Paradoxically, the less you try to do, the fewer goals you set for yourself, the more successful you will become. That's what all these yogis say, right? Like, oh, let go, then you will have everything. Surrender to the divine, and then God will fulfill all of your wishes. I'm like, wait, what? Give up all of your desires, and God will fulfill all of your wishes. It's like, does that mean that I have zero desires, so God doesn't fulfill anything? Like, what is this scam? And he's like, don't ask like that. It is yoga. It is meditation. Your third eye is closed. That's why you don't understand. Give up all of your desires and give me the money. You don't have desires? With that money, I will take it. I'll take it off your hands. Don't ask question. Don't ask question, okay? Just give it all up. But really, it's crazy. All right, y'all. Have a good weekend. I'll see y'all. We have a memberships lecture on shame and lust on Monday, and then I think we've got some streams and stuff coming up. Yeah, there's good stuff. So thank y'all very much for coming today. I had a blast. It's such an honor and a privilege to be able to work on a Saturday. I'm serious. Like, this is great. Like, I want y'all to I want to thank you for one last thing, which is like, now I'm going to go, it's 2:30 on a Saturday, and look at what I get to do. I get to think to myself, man, I woke up at 8 a.m. today, meditated, read a bunch of papers, put together a lecture, streamed for a couple of hours, and just imagine the freedom I'm going to have for the rest of the day. It's like, I worked today and I'm done. That's what I want y'all to have, that feeling of like, it's Saturday at 2 o'clock and I was productive, so I get to have a good time. Dopamine surge is right. So one last thing I'll give y'all a little tip about why you should work first thing when you wake up. So when our dopamine is stored in these little things called vesicles. So when we sleep at night, our neurons, they package a bunch of dopamine into these like little grenades. And then they launch the grenade and it spits out a bunch of dopamine. And the dopamine gets recycled. So it gets like taken up and then put back into the neuron. So we used to think about this recycling as a very like rapid process, but it turns out that you basically have the way that I think about it clinically is you have a fixed amount of dopamine to use up every day. The more of it you have, the more of it gets kind of tossed out. And then once you're at the bottom of the barrel, you have to like scrape up whatever little dopamine you have. So when you work first thing in the morning, there's a lot of dopamine for you to be able to feel pleasure and reinforcement. One of the reasons that I think motivation is at an all-time low and burnout is at an all-time high is because we spend about an hour to an hour and a half on a device when we first wake up in the morning, on average. And what you're doing is taking these huge stocks of dopamine and depleting them within the first 60 minutes of you waking up. And then you have so little left that reinforcing any kind of work or positivity, there's no dopamine left for behavioral reinforcement. Then we go to the slog of work. So any action that you take, if it has any possibility of being pleasurable or reinforcing or feeling good, even feeling accomplished, that's a surge of dopamine. That surge of accomplishment is dopamine. So stop using a device and just dive into work as quickly as you can when you wake up. If you want to like take a piss and stuff, that's fine. Make your coffee, whatever. But then really like get into it. I find it very helpful. So small tip, okay? All right. So take care, y'all. We'll see y'all hopefully on Monday and talk about shame and lust, including some excerpts of Kama Sutra. Okay? So Kama Sutra is great. I think I'm going to do for the stream, I will do deep dive on Kama Sutra. It'll be good. Actually, really fantastic text. So we're going to dive into a little bit on Monday, but then I think there's something we want to do for everybody. Okay? So take care, y'all. Adios.